while Legislator Borgia leads us in the pledge to the flag. Almighty God, give us the strength, courage, and wisdom to always act in the best interest of the people of Westchester County while we're in this chamber. Let us keep in mind that every decision that we make impacts upon the life, health, and safety of all our great county residents. Amen. Madam Clerk.
Majority Leader Harcum. Here. Minority Leader Mazzano. Here. Ms. Borgia. Here. Mr. Burrows. Here. Mr. Gelfarb. Here. Mr. Kaplowitz. Here. Ms. Marcotte. Here. Ms. Myers. Here. Ms. Perez. Here. Mr. Ryan. Ms. Shimsky. Here. Mr. Smith. Here. Ms. Spreckman. Mr. Testa.
Here.
Ms. Williams. Mr. Williams. Mr. Chairman.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Harcum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, we'd move the consent agenda with the following suggested revisions. On page 6, item 22, please add Committee on Government and Operations. Page 6, number 24, please add Committee on Community Services. On page 7, item 4, please add Committee on Government and Operations. Page 9, please add Legislator Shimsky. On page 10, item 16, please add Committee on Community Services. On page 11, number 18, please add Legislator Borgia and also Committee on Government Operations. Same page, number 20, again, please add Legislator Borgia, Committee on Government and Operations. On page 14, please add Legislator Lyndon Williams. I'm sorry, that was page 14, number 33. I apologize. Please add Legislator Lyndon Williams. On page 14, number 35, please add Legislator Virginia Perez. On page 14, number 36, please add Legislator Myers and Legislator Harcum. And on page 15, number 38, please add Committee on Community Services. And with those changes, so moved.
Thank you. Mr. Mazzano. Ms. Shimsky.
I concur.
All right, we are on consent. Mr. Harcum, for minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would also at this time move the minutes from the June 11th and the June 17th meetings.
Without objections, members, so ordered. Madam Clerk.
For public comment, each speaker shall have 3 minutes. I'll call the names of the speakers and ask that you please come down the aisle to my left and wait behind the black ropes. Michael Gottfried, Samuel Barnes, Angela Williams. And the first speaker is Michael Gottfried.
Good evening. Thank you very much. I want to thank you for the opportunity to present this evening. My name is Michael Gottfried. I am a member of the Budget Committee of the Village of Larchmont, and I'd like to address this honorable board in connection with two of the three matters that are on pages 21 and 22. Numbers 28, 29, and 30 involve acts to exempt personal real property owned by municipal governments outside of their territorial boundaries that provide municipal services. 28 and 30 involve the Village of Larchmont, and the Village of Larchmont owns 2 parcels of property, one that houses its storage tanks and water pumping facilities in the town of Mamaroneck, and the other one is commonly referred to as the Larchmont Reservoir, and that spans properties in two different jurisdictions, both the town of Mamaroneck and the city of New Rochelle. If all of these properties were within the territorial limits of the village of Larchmont, all of these properties would be automatically exempt from taxation, all taxation under Section 1 of the real property exemption statute codified in Section 406. Because it is outside of our small little village that has 6,000 plus residents, it is no longer automatically exempt. In order for it to be exempt, it has to qualify under Sections 2 or 3, which has a provision in there that the taxing bodies have the opportunity to vote on whether or not the exemption should issue. In this particular instance, it's clear that the properties provide municipal benefits that span beyond the village of Larchmont. The Larchmont Reservoir, which houses the Sheldrick Environmental Center, provides a vast amount of environmental benefits to the communities that reside within Westchester County. I'm sure most of you have passed by there and seen how wonderful it is. But it also provides flood control benefits as well as soil conservation benefits. In 1980s, 20 some odd years ago, the village of Larchmont, when it stopped using the Larchmont Reservoir as its water supply, dedicated this particular property into perpetuity as an environmental center. And it provides, and it continues from that day forward to provide benefits that are expressly within the ambit of the statute. And so when the town of Mamaroneck entered into an agreement 20 some odd years ago to exempt the Larchmont Reservoir, and the city of Rye entered into an agreement, they exempted the top level municipal taxes on it. What we're asking for now is the county to follow suit and abate or exempt the tax, the county portion of the taxes on each of these properties. It constitutes at present roughly 20% of the total tax levy on this particular property, which provides monumental benefits to the neighboring community, which is far away from the village of Larchmont. When it rains, when its flooding starts, this property goes to work. It provides benefits to New Rochelle, it provides benefits to the town of Mamaroneck, and it's clearly within the ambit of what is contemplated by New York State. And I am so thankful to the Committee on the Budget and Appropriations for their consideration, their thorough consideration of this particular matter. They have asked that a review be done to find out how many properties would qualify for this exemption, and much to everybody's surprise, it was a small number. It was a dozen or so with a small cost, less than a penny when you actually go through and evaluate. A fraction of a penny is the cost, but the benefits in flood control continue and will continue for many, many years. And flood control is one of the biggest issues that we face in Westchester County, and cooperation is really important. And so this act is really going to further the efforts in this particular issue. It's a small amount of money, but it has monumental consequences across the board. And
Okay, we need you to wrap. Thank you.
And so I want to thank the board for its consideration, and I hope you will support this act.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Samuel Barnes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to speak to you regarding the towing and booting prices for Westchester County. We're asking for an increase. Now, I'm from Easy Towing in Yonkers, and I do quite a business here in White Plains. And it's been at least 10 or 15 years since we have had an increase. As you know, cost of living has gone up quite a bit. Fuel, insurance, labor, and the cost of equipment to take care of the business that we do, and from the private parking lots. And it's time for an increase. We can no longer keep working under these conditions, such a low price. Everything goes up, but we gets no increase on anything, but we still have to keep paying out. So business still must go on. So I would appreciate it if y'all could see it to give us an increase so that we can still continue to do business here in Westchester. Thank you.
Angela Williams.
Hello, everyone. My name's Angela Williams. I own Avalon Towing, and I proposed an increase for the towing and booting that we need terribly bad. Where I'm at out of New Rochelle, the city towing gets 3 times more for towing, 3 times more for booting. The gas, we get $1.25 that was set from the county. That was, I think, in 1976 when gas was 50 cents a gallon. New Rochelle get $8 per mile. We get $1.25 per mile. We need it to be raised. I propose $6 per mile. Also, I'm asking for the county to regulate all the towns and cities under them, because they have these towns that has these crazy laws. Someone come from Yonkers to tow a car, and on a drop they want you only to get $15. That's unheard of. They want you to release if someone call you about a boot, they could be there all day. They want you to release a car within 15 minutes. I can't use the bathroom in 15 minutes. These are some crazy laws. Like New Rochelle have on the books, you can't boot an animal. It's just a gerbil or a bird if it's in the car. Everybody get wind of something like that, there's no way I can make money. Bring your dog, your bird, your cat, anything, you can't boot a car. So we need someone a guideline, someone to be the gatekeeper, because these laws is crazy. New Rochelle just set out a law where there's about 18 cars that can park on your private property, and there's nothing you can do because they says, oh, it's a government car, is this car, is that car. If there's no emergency and they don't belong there, I've been doing it a long time, these people get out their trucks, their city trucks, they go to the bar, they meet their girlfriends, they get dropped off, they leave the cars there, and they're telling us that we can't do nothing about it. I have a property in New Rochelle, a complex where now we can't even tow or boot off a handicap. There's a car been parked there three weeks now, no handicap sticker, and we're not allowed to tow or boot off it. And it's a place where police officers live in these buildings here, so they know the law, and it could be one of their cars. There's nothing we can do. I think it's against anyone that owns the property rights for something to be written like that. So I believe that some of these laws should be looked at, even though they make these laws, because it's impossible. The prices that they want to charge you is incredible. And maybe y'all should look into the different laws that these cities and towns have that's not following the guidelines of the county. I suggest everyone has to follow at least the amount that they set. They can go up higher, but they can't go lower, so everyone gets to be on the same playing field. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have no other cards.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's proceed with the regular order of business.
Standing committees, item 6092, from the Committees on Budget Appropriations and Government Operations, is an amended bond act authorizing the issuance of $2 million in additional bonds of the county for a total bond amount of $4,550,000 to finance capital project SPS 07, repairs, upgrades of the Alexander Street influent structure.
Ms. Myers.
Yes, thank you very much. This is a project that was originally, the original request was for $2 million. It was actually for $2,550,000. However, in looking over the original estimate, the Department of Environmental Facilities realized that they needed to do an even more extensive repair job on this influent structure, and it would require $2 million more. So this was presented to Budget and Appropriations and approved. It also went through Government Operations. I'll turn this over to them.
Ms. Borgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Legislator Myers said, this is a capital budget amendment. It is for the replacement of the influent gates, providing portable operators for the upstream control, some studies to detect the defects and holes in the mechanicals associated with this site, and the provision of portable operators in the upstream control structure. So this is something that, we're fortunate that our Department of Environmental Facilities is doing such a thorough job, and these repairs we believe are very necessary. So Government Operations did pass this out. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Borgia. Members on this item. Madam Clerk, a long roll call, please.
Mr. Harkam.
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano. Ms. Borgia.
Yes.
Mr. Burrows. Mr. Gelfarb. Mr. Kaplowitz.
Aye.
Ms. Marcotte. Ms. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Perez.
Yes.
Ms. Shimsky.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Spreckman. Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Approved 15-0. Items 2, 3, and 4 are all related to tonight's public hearing. So that takes us to item number 5, ID number 6170, submitted by the Committees on Budget Appropriations and Government Operations, a bond act authorizing up to $3,037,000 in bonds of the county for capital project SY009, Yonkers Joint Treatment Plant, odor control, and HVAC upgrades.
Ms. Myers.
Yes, this is bonding relating to the odor control and HVAC upgrades at the Yonkers Joint Treatment Plant. And this $3 million is for Phase 2. The design is complete at this point. And so for Phase 2, this is the dollar amount that is required. I will also turn this over to Government Operations.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Ms. Borgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Legislator Shimsky and I and some of our interns had an opportunity to tour the Yonkers Joint Wastewater Treatment Plant recently, and we did find it to be very, very, very fascinating. So we saw the sites of these projects firsthand. As Legislator Myers said, this is a multi-phase project. This particular project is to do with the heating, ventilation, HVAC, odor control. This will make improvements to some systems that were installed in 1979. We all know from sort of tales of the neighborhoods that this has been an ongoing problem, although we have seen some improvement recently. These continued improvements would include equipment and procedure upgrades, ductwork, fire alarm and gas detection equipment, air conditioning in the laboratory, replacement of many other mechanicals, boilers, controls, et cetera. And this will make sure that the treatment plant has the correct heating and ventilation and cooling systems, which also, of course, helps with the odor remediation. So Government Operations did feel it was a worthwhile project. I also wanted to show my colleagues this little thing they gave us, and they said they were going to give us a quiz. Fortunately, we didn't get the quiz at the end of it's quite a detailed operation they got going over there. Anyway, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With any members on this item, Ms. Perez.
Just really quickly, I mean, you'd be surprised about so much you can learn by touring the plant. I've been there a few times, and I absolutely loved it. I know the Little Park Association is incredibly excited to move forward with Phase 2 and finalizing, and I wholeheartedly support this. I'm very excited about this.
Other members on this item? And while there wasn't a quiz, Ms. Borgia, on the science behind the plan, it certainly is extremely fascinating for anyone that has had an opportunity to go there. They do a lot of tours for the younger folks in schools, but for us that legislate this is very important. This is part of our project, as many members know, for odor remediation at that Yonkers joint plant. That has been several years in the making, and we are continuing on that path. Looking forward to those things being accomplished. We have some folks up north waiting for some other things to happen because of that, should I recall correctly. Madam Clerk, unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 15-0. Item 6171 from the Committees on Budget Appropriations and Government Operations, an amended bond act in the amount of $6,300,000, which includes $2,700,000 in previously authorized bonds for a total amount of $9 million in bonds of the county to finance capital project SPK 12 Peekskill Wastewater Treatment Plant mechanical sludge handling upgrades.
Ms. Myers.
Yes, this too, we're seemingly on the topic of wastewater treatment. This one is up county a bit at the Peekskill Wastewater Treatment Plant, and these are upgrades to the mechanical and sludge handling facilities, and it's funding the cost of construction because the design work is finished on these, and they are ready to begin construction. I will turn this over to Legislator Borgia.
Ms. Borgia.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, the following week, we visited the Peekskill wastewater treatment plant system, which is interesting because even though it's on the same sort of physical, approximately the same amount of physical acreage, it looks completely different. This is in a very rural area of Peekskill, right off of the Bear Mountain Extension. So you don't even know, it's hard to even imagine that you're in the city of Peekskill, which is a very lively and bustling city, as my colleague, Mr. Testa, will attest to. This is to do the mechanicals on the sludge handling treatment plant. A lot of this equipment has aged beyond its useful life. We were able to see exactly the need for this particular project when Legislator Shimsky and I did tour this plant as well. It basically is the mechanisms for the sludge collection in the primary and first tanks that see the first treatment and collection before it gets dewatered later on in the plant. So again, we're learning a lot about the necessary underpinnings of society traveling in these treatment plants, but we can see that this is a very worthwhile project. It's a very functional and operational facility. One of the most interesting things about this plant was that they were having some problems with birds, and they hung up these gigantic paper owls. So sometimes the lowest tech solutions are also very, very good. Anyway, government operations would like to see this project approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Borgia. Members on this item. Ms. Borgia, because in your committee you do the regular reporting on this, I just want to note for the record, this particular item was passed by the Board of Legislators. It looks like August 8th, 2011. Sorry, I don't have my glasses on right now. And you've been getting regular updates. Usually we get these things back from the administration when the design is 60% complete. The notes that we have here says that was done, the 60% complete mark was July 30th, 2012. So a year later, taking it to get to us to this particular point, and now we're moving forward on it. So it sounds like, again, with your visitation up at Peekskill, that is good. Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 15-0.
Mr. Harkin, we are at the prescribed time for the public hearing.
Yes, Mr. Chair, at this time, I would move that we would suspend our regular order of business for the purpose of conducting one public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Harkin. Madam Clerk.
Notice of tonight's hearing was published in the Journal News. I have proof of publication, which is available for inspection in my office. Public hearing is from the Committees on Budget Appropriations and Government Operations on the proposed increase and improvement of facilities for County Water District Number 1 as set forth in the district report dated May 15, 2013, as may be amended from time to time. Mr. Chairman, I have no cards.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Harkam.
Actually, Mr. Chair, we're going to be recommitting the public hearing because we're going to be recommitting the legislation because there are two municipalities that have questions about how this will impact them. They've asked the Department of Environmental Facilities to do some more research on this. So because the three pieces of legislation will be going back to the committee, obviously, then the public hearing would need to be renoticed if there's new legislation coming out. So that's a long way of saying we are recommitting the public hearing, and then when we get to the other items, we'll recommit those as well.
Thank you, Mr. Harkam. I understand we're closing this public hearing, so that would be your motion at this point in time?
So moved.
Thank you. That we're closing the public hearing. Should the committee determine that there's modifications in the legislation, there would be a new public hearing. Otherwise, it would not be necessary. But, Madam Clerk, let's go back on the agenda so we can take care of what Mr. Harkam just was relating to us on item number 2.
ID number 6149 from the Committees on Budget Appropriations and Government Operations is an act amending the 2013 County Capital Budget Appropriations for Capital Project WD-103, County Water District Number 1, Alternate Water Supply.
Mr. Harkam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As previously discussed, we'll be recommitting 6149, 6150, and 6151.
On the item 6149 has been recommitted. Madam Clerk, item number 3.
6150 from the Committees on Budget Appropriations and Government Operations is a bond act authorizing the issuance of $4,700,000 in bonds of the county to finance capital project WD-103, design, construction management, and construction costs of water system improvements to Water District Number 1.
Mr. Harkam.
Recommit, as previously discussed.
Thank you. That item has been recommitted. Madam Clerk, item 4.
ID number 6151 from the Committees on Budget Appropriations and Government Operations is an act authorizing the county to enter into such intermunicipal agreements as may be necessary for the benefit of Water District Number 1 to carry our capital project WD-103 and to accept any and all grants of property rights necessary in furtherance hereof.
Mr. Harkam.
Recommitted as previously discussed.
Thank you, Mr. Harkam. The item's been recommitted. Madam Clerk, where are we?
Number 7.
Awesome.
Item number 7. ID number 6172. From the Committees on Budget Appropriations and Government Operations, an amended bond act in the amount of $8 million, which includes $1,600,000 in previously authorized bonds, for a total amount of $9,600,000 in bonds of the county to finance capital project SPK 14, Peekskill wastewater treatment plant, secondary process, and heating system upgrades.
Ms. Myers.
Yes, again, perhaps because of the visit by Legislator Borgia, Peekskill wastewater treatment plant has a secondary process that requires funding. The design for this is 30% complete, but the presentation indicated that this is the time they would need to bond for this or get the approval for the bonding for the remainder of this work, which comes in the amount of $8 million. It was also noted, I think quite importantly, that they are also doing a study, they will be doing a study later on this year, specifically at this plant, where they will be looking at converting the methane gas that is emitted to energy. And this is something that undoubtedly will be of great interest to the county. I will turn this over to Legislator Borgia.
Ms. Borgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I neglected to mention in our other wastewater treatment plant bonds that the design work is all being done by outside consultants, primarily because of the complicated and specific nature of this type of work. As Legislator Myers said, this has a 30% design completion. It is to construct the first phase which includes the upgrades of systems and process components. This particular wastewater treatment plant had been taken over by the county in 1978. Many of these systems have not been upgraded since then, and so it is a necessary component to the complete upgrade of this property. And as you could do the math, that the equipment is over 35 years old, so it has indeed reached the end of its useful life. This is a project that will also help prevent odor remediation and will also allow for the digester system to operate more efficiently and therefore to produce more gas that can be reused in the plant and elsewhere. So government operations felt this was a worthy project to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Borgia. Members on this item? Just in general, thank you, Ms. Myers and Ms. Borgia, for clarifying. This project is at 30% design. I know that we had a threshold and continue to have that threshold at 60% design. Is there a specific reason and rationale that we'd like to put on the record for us making would be a huge difference in our normal course of business on this particular upgrade? Because usually, especially if it's an outside consultant. Ms. Borgia?
I'm just reviewing in my notes. I believe that the reasoning was because of the timing that this work needs to happen with respect to the actual equipment repair, allowing the other phases of the work to be done at that plant to take place. Although, as far as the bonding issue goes, I'm not 100% sure that is an issue to do it at 30% versus 60%. That's something that, I'm not 100% sure about that. I know that the work itself is not intended to go forward until well into next year, I think, is when the work is actually beginning. So there might be, I'm not sure, Legislator Myers, if there's a financial reason for the timing as well. Perhaps there might be. I know that operationally, they did say that this needed to happen at this time in order for the project plan to move forward with the other component parts happening at that plant. But I don't really know, I'm sorry that I don't really know the answer to the bonding question.
Ms. Myers?
Yes, to that question,
Thank you,
the only indication was the testimony from Department of Public Works and the Department of Environmental Facilities that they felt at this point it was the opportune time to move this forward. Even though only 30% was done, they felt seemed very confident that the rest of the design would move quite smoothly and quite quickly.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Myers, for that information. Madam Clerk, a long roll call vote.
Mr. Harcum?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano? Yes. Ms. Borgia?
Yes.
Mr. Burrows? Yes. Mr. Gelfarb? Aye. Mr. Kaplowitz? Aye. Ms. Marcotte? Ms. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Perez?
Yes.
Ms. Shimsky?
Aye.
Mr. Smith? Yes. Ms. Spreckman? Yes. Mr. Testa? Yes. Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
No.
Approved 14-1. Item 5978 from the Committee on Appointments is the reappointment of Isabel Villar as a member of the Westchester County Hispanic Advisory Board for a term to expire December 31st, 2014.
Ms. Shimsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For years, Ms. Villar has been one of the preeminent leaders in the Hispanic community in this county. We're very lucky to have her on the committee, and therefore, I'm honored to move her reappointment here tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item. Madam Clerk, a long roll call vote.
Mr. Harcum?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano? Yes. Ms. Borgia?
Yes.
Mr. Burrows? Mr. Gelfarb? Yes. Mr. Kaplowitz? Aye. Ms. Marcotte? Ms. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Perez?
Yes.
Ms. Shimsky?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Spreckman? Mr. Testa? Yes. Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Approved 15-0. Item 6187 from the Committee on Appointments is the reappointment of John Peters as an alternate sportsman representative member of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, Region 3, Fish and Wildlife Management Board for a term to expire December 31st, 2014.
Ms. Shimsky.
It's our understanding that even as an alternate, Mr. Peters is very knowledgeable, very dedicated, and takes an active role in this committee, and we therefore move his reappointment tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item? Without objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 15-0. Item 6193 from the Committee on Appointments is the reappointment of Stephen Morello as a member of the Westchester County Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board for a term January 1, 2013 to December 31, 2013.
Ms. Shimsky.
Mr. Morello is well qualified, has been an active participant, and we therefore move his reappointment as well.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 15-0. Item 6195, the reappointment of Dr. Nigro as a member of the Westchester County Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board for a term January 1, 2013 to December 31, 2013.
Ms. Shimsky.
Dr. Nigro has likewise served faithfully and well, and we move his reappointment as well.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 15-0. Item 6199 from the Committee on Appointments is the reappointment of Joanne Rosamond as a member of the Westchester County Women's Advisory Board for the term January 1, 2013 to December 31, 2014.
Ms. Shimsky.
Ms. Rosamond's work on this committee has also been very good, and we gladly recommend her reappointment tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 15-0. Item 6202 from the Committee on Appointments is the reappointment of Rocco Circosta as a member of the Westchester County Refuse Disposal District Number 1 Advisory Board for the term January 1, 2013 to December 31, 2014.
Ms. Shimsky.
Mr. Circosta is very well regarded as a refuse disposal professional in his end of the county, and we therefore happily move his reappointment.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 15-0. Item 6210 from the Committees on Budget and Appropriations and Government Operations, an act adopting the determination and findings in connection with the rehabilitation of the Ashford Avenue Bridge in accordance with New York eminent domain procedure law.
Ms. Myers.
Yes, I'd like to turn this over to Legislator Shimsky, because this is actually going to be renamed the Shimsky Bridge.
Just make sure they don't make it Shimsky.
I didn't say Memorial.
Ms. Shimsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This will hopefully close out the latest chapter in the long saga of the Ashford Avenue Bridge. In order to qualify for approximately $6 million in state and federal aid, we have to comply with all relevant state and federal environmental review and legal procedures leading up to the construction work. One set of those requirements concerns the eminent domain law, because we are going to need temporary easements for 5 properties in order to stage the work on the bridge. We have been going through the process the last several months. Those of you who are on government operations and those of you who have been here for the hearings and the presentation by the Department of Public Works and the County Attorney's Office has some familiarity with the substantive issues involved. There's been a very carefully prepared set of findings which were vetted both in government operations and in budget. This is a project that obviously needs to be done. We need to keep on our current timetable because the condition of the bridge is parlous, and unfortunately the time frame until we finally get a newly repaired bridge is a rather long one. So therefore I move this adoption of the findings here tonight, and as I said, this will move us on to the next phase of satisfaction of legal requirements, so that way we will eventually begin our work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Ms. Borgia? Members on this item? Just for clarity, again, Ms. Shimsky and Ms. Myers and Ms. Borgia, it's a temporary easement.
That's why I said.
Clearly said that it was temporary easement. Anytime people see eminent domain, they think something different. So it's a temporary situation. Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 15-0. Item 6222 from the Committee on Budget and Appropriations is an act authorizing the county attorney to compromise the county's right to be reimbursed for health care and wage benefits paid to or on behalf of a police officer from a settlement of his legal action against a third-party tortfeasor.
Ms. Myers?
Yes. Sorry. As announced, this is the settlement of a workers' comp case and a lien against the county, and this compromise would return $32,911 to the county as a reimbursement for health and wage benefits to a county that had been paid out to a county employee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 15-0. Item 6223 from the Committee on Budget and Appropriations, WCC Budget 2013-2014 Public Hearing Rules.
Ms. Myers?
Yes, as per our annual practice, we would like to adopt a resolution that will call for a public hearing for the Westchester Community College budget that will be held in August, and I will get to it in 2 more items.
Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Myers. Members on this item? Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 15-0. Item 6224 from the Committee on Budget and Appropriations is a resolution suspending certain rules of the Board of Legislators solely with regard to the 2013-2014 proposed WCC budget.
Ms. Myers?
Yes, again, with regards to the upcoming Westchester Community College budget, this is a resolution seeking the suspension of the rules for the next meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Members on this item? Unless there's objections, members will take the prior long roll call vote for approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 15-0. Item 6225 from the Committee on Budget and Appropriations is a resolution setting a public hearing in the chambers of the County Board of Legislators on an act adopting the Westchester Community College budget for 2013-2014 and making appropriations for the operation of a Westchester Community College.
Ms. Myers, setting the public hearing?
Yes, would ask that the public hearing be set for Monday, August 12th, 2013 at 10:30 a.m. It'll be a morning meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Myers, the only morning meeting we have. Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the setting of the public hearing. So ordered.
Approved 15-0. Item 5965 from the Committees on Budget and Appropriations and Community Services is an act authorizing the county to execute and submit to the State of New York a resource allocation plan which will provide state reimbursement for certain youth services and programs.
Ms. Myers, your amendment?
Yes, this is an act for the resource allocation plan for 2013 as presented to the Budget and Appropriations Committee by the director of the Youth Bureau, the Youth Bureau Administration. On behalf of the Youth Bureau Administration, unfortunately, there was a mathematical error that had been caught in between the time that this went through the Community Services Committee and the time that it appeared before the Budget and Appropriations Committee. So at this time, I would like to ask the Community Services Chair to accept an amendment on the floor of the amount of money that would be payable through the Youth Bureau.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Members, on your desk, you have a copy of SI 5965. Printed copy, it says amended version with the modifications Ms. Myers has just stated. Ms. Williams, your pleasure on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Chairman of Community Services Committee, I accept the modification.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Members, we are, Ms. Myers, you can present now on item 5965, the amended version thereof.
Yes, the amended version would seek to provide directly to the selected municipalities an amount not to exceed $837,306. And the way this works out is it goes to, roughly half of it goes to the municipal agencies, including a $50,000 fee for the County Department of Parks, Recreation, and Conservation, and $157,000 for Youth Bureau administration, and the other half, the $410,000, distributed to the not-for-profit agencies that have met the requirements in the actual resource allocation plan. The Budget and Appropriations Committee was presented with a very large chart of all of the different agencies that would be funded in funding streams that basically run along the lines of the youth development, delinquency prevention programs, special delinquency prevention programs, runaway, homeless, and programs along these lines. So this has been approved by Budget and Appropriations.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just would like to add the fact that these programs have been proven to be very beneficial to our adolescent population in the county, providing services at a much lesser cost than incarceration services for juvenile delinquency and other reasons. So for that reason, Community Services Committee is delighted to be able to accept these funds and provide these services to our youth. Thank you. So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Members on this item? Ms. Williams and Ms. Myers, well, first, thank you for the modification and the math that was caught from one committee to the other. And second, I noticed that we have in this particular item $174,000 that used to be part of the board additions, and that was some of the things that we have done in the past with the board additions that were not adopted in the 2013 budget. So now, basically in this particular case, $174,000 of this SDPP, YDPP dollars that was previously used by those agencies would not be matched based on the act, at least from the information that we have here. Certainly it'd be an opportunity to note that unless one of us has received it at this point in time, we still do not have, pursuant to charter, an appointment that's been confirmed by the Board of Legislators. Hopefully we'll see that one day for that particular position, which is by charter, to be done for the executive director to be confirmed by the Board of Legislators. The members. Unless there's objection, members, we'll take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 15-0. Item 6093 from the Committees on Budget and Appropriations and Government Operations, a bond act authorizing the issuance of $300,000 in bonds of the county to finance capital project RPA 03, North and South County Trailways Infrastructure.
Ms. Myers.
Yes, this is a request for $300,000 in bonding for the North and South County Trailway infrastructure. We discussed this in budget and appropriations, and specifically, we're concerned with the fact that the design for this, which seems relatively simple, had to be done through a consultant, but the commissioner or acting commissioner of Public Works did say that there was a lack of capacity in DPW to handle this in-house, so we must go outside. The engineers are busy on other projects, he said. So therefore, I will turn this over to government operations, but budget appropriations did approve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Ms. Borgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is, it's for design for the first phase of the project for 2 segments of the North County Trailway. It's approximately 13.2 miles. Some of the parts of the trailway that are part of this particular project are actually closed right now, although there's hope that there's some remediation that can be done to open those trails and make them safe for our hikers and bikers and walkers prior to this project. As Legislator Myers said, this is for design scheduled for this year. The actual work is not scheduled to begin until 2015. However, there is hope from the Department of Parks and Recreation that if this design is completed in a more expeditious fashion, that they will be able to begin the work earlier because this is a very well-used park, and part of the trail, especially in these sections, are over 30 years old, and they do need some major repairs for the safety of our residents. So government operations did feel this was a good project to move forward. I do note that this is a phase 1 project, so we'll be seeing other parts of this project as we go on in this year and in subsequent years, because there is some really necessary work to be done on the trailway.
Thank you, Ms. Borgia. Members on this item. I do note for the record that part of these, this particular addition, because this is new, this is not an old project that's been sitting there, it's a new project for this particular thing. Part of this section, I recall, Legislator Nona had an accident on, if I recall, that his bicycle went over, I guess, head over heels, or I guess over the handlebars, and while people thought it might be something that happened during the campaign season, it certainly was something that was caused by the trailway back during that particular point in time. So this is work certainly that's necessary, and hopefully that it could get done. I know that in the committee meeting today, I believe Mr. Pisco, who is neither acting nor commissioner at this point in time, hopefully that will be resolved soon by our administration in sending us down a acting opportunity. However, they're noted on the record that there is not staff available to do this in-house, that there was not the bodies to do this work, which it has to go outside. So, members, without objection, take the prior long roll call vote for approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 15-0. Item 6132 from...
Over.
Over, Ms. Shimsky. Item 6133.
Over.
Over, Ms. Shimsky. Item 6134 from the Committees on Budget and Appropriations and Government Operations, a bond act authorizing the issuance of up to $120,000 in bonds of the county to finance capital project RCC 11 County Center Interior.
Ms. Myers.
Yes, happily, this is an in-house design for this item. This is the interior design money for the county center, actually the dressing rooms. And a very good report was given that indicated that because Parks and Recreation are able to, working with an agent, they've been able to bring in some larger acts and perhaps some greater divas, a greater dressing room is required. Therefore, this would fund the cost of that and would allow the county center to continue to appeal to big name stars. So moved.
Members on this item, unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 15-0. Item 6135 from the Committees on Budget Appropriations and Government Operations. Bond Act authorizing the issuance of up to $500,000 in bonds of the county to finance capital project BIT 29 data center upgrade.
Ms. Myers.
Yes. This is an IT bond that would issue $500,000 in bond to finance a data center upgrade, which actually provides for the replacement of equipment and reconfiguration of the IT department. Apparently, the current IT center, data center, is what is known as power-bound, and they need to basically decrease the amount of power used, and they're working with NIPA on a study to do this, so that we can utilize less power, save money that way, and still provide data center information to the county. I will turn this over to government operations at this point.
Ms. Borgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, this was a pretty interesting project. It's a one-shot project, the $500,000 to do the reconfiguration. And the way that IT got around this problem of not being able to have additional energy is to use a more energy-efficient way of keeping the equipment at the temperature that it needs to be kept. So it's the creation of these what they call aisles, hot and cold aisles, so that in addition to just blowing cold air into the facility, it's actually the two data facilities at the McCallion Office Building, and then the Transportation Management Center in Hawthorne, too, is also impacted by this. So instead of merely blowing cold air in, there was this new configuration, and equipment will be able to suck the hot air out as well. So it will be an energy efficiency project, as well as being providing the correct atmosphere for the data center, which of course is very, very, very critical to all of our operations here in Westchester County. So the government operations thought this was a worthwhile project to pursue, and we'd like to move it forward.
Thank you, Ms. Borgia. Members on this item. Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 15-0. Item 6136 from the Committees on Budget and Appropriations and Government Operations, a bond act authorizing the issuance of up to $150,000 in bonds of the county to finance capital project RKD02 Kensico Plaza Storage Building.
Ms. Myers.
Yes, this is a request for $150,000 to actually design in-house a storage building for the Kensico Plaza, and it continues the renovations that have been going on at Kensico Park since 2006. This is one of the final, one of the final pieces of all of this, and they believe the construction would start in 2014, and this is just the design of the building. I'll turn this over to Government Operations.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Ms. Borgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is a 30 by 60 building that will be able to house their gas and electrical vehicles and also the handheld equipment, which of course will extend the life of all of those pieces of equipment. Also, they are intended to put a gas sourcing on that site so that vehicles can gas up there for use in that area, so that they don't lose time and efficiencies by having to go to a different site for fueling up of the equipment. It also includes an indoor vehicle, in addition to the indoor vehicle storage area, there's a workshop, there's an outdoor storage area, employee parking, and some landscaping and associated site work, which is important because that site has become such a central area for many recreational programs put on by Westchester County, and is really used by residents all over Westchester County. Many of our parks, unfortunately, aren't as well known and aren't as well used, but Kensico is one that I think everyone in the county is familiar with and has the opportunity to enjoy. So Government Operations felt this was a very worthwhile project to move forward.
Thank you, Ms. Borgia. Members on this item. Unless there's objection, members will take the prior long roll call vote for approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 15-0. Item 6214 from the Committees on Budget Appropriations and Community Services, an act authorizing the County of Westchester to enter into an intermunicipal agreement with the Village of Tarrytown for the purpose of operating the Tarrytown Sleepy Hollow Summer Day Camp in the amount of $42,600.
Ms. Myers.
Yes, this is an intermunicipal agreement, and I would at this point like to turn this over to Legislator Elfrida Williams, because this is something that she has been very involved with.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this is an intermunicipal agreement between the county and the Village of Tarrytown to operate a summer day camp program for children of both villages. The program has been in operation over 5 years now, and it's been very successful in being able to assure parents, especially single-parent households, that their children are receiving safe, reliable educational programs during the summer, and it certainly helps with their ability to make a better adjustment to school life in the fall. So with that, I would ask that the board accept the program and vote in favor of it. So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Members on this item. Just noting this particular item came from the administration. It's a program that the board has supported in the past through its additions to the budget. So it's certainly a good program that we think absolutely should continue. Unless there's objection, members, we'll take the prior long roll call vote for approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 15-0. Item 6227 from the Committee on Environment and Energy is a resolution setting a public hearing for the Westchester County Agriculture and Farmland Protection Board District Number 1 addition of new parcels for calendar year 2013.
Mr. Kaplowitz.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The early version had the incorrect caption, but as the Environment Committee today met on this item, and as the clerk has appropriately read the caption, this is for purposes of simply scheduling a public hearing, and the request the public hearing be on August 12th, 2013, 10:30 a.m.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplowitz. Members, without objection, will take the prior long roll call vote for setting the public hearing. So ordered.
Approved 15-0. Item 6270 from the Committee on Budget and Appropriations. Over, Mr. Mazzano. Item 6271 from the Committee on Budget and Appropriations, an act to exempt certain real property owned by the Village of Mount Kisco and located within the town of Bedford and the town of North Castle from the real property taxes imposed by the County of Westchester for county and county district purposes other than sewer district purposes.
Ms. Myers.
Yes, this is an interesting, this is actually a very, very interesting item that this and the previous item that was just overed and the next one, which I assume will be overed as well. This is a situation whereby, in this case, the Village of Larchmont and the Village of Mount Kisco both came forward with parcels that they owned that, if they were in their own municipality, would be tax exempt. These are parcels that provide a public benefit. Specifically, they provide a public benefit in terms of both water retention as well as water treatment and clean water, for clean water purposes. And unfortunately, these are both older municipalities that didn't have enough land to have these parcels within their own borders, so they had to purchase parcels in adjacent municipalities, and therefore it had been assumed that they were not exempt from property tax. However, due to the very good due diligence of a variety of town managers as well as volunteers on budget committees, it was revealed and concurred by our terrific David Jackson, who's in charge of our who is our tax assessor, that in subdivision 3 of the section 406 of the real property tax law, it does say that real property owned by a municipal corporation not within its corporate limits that are used as a water plant, pumping station, water treatment plant, watershed, or reservoir, including necessary connections and appurtenances, shall be wholly or partially exempt from taxation and wholly or partially exempt from special ad valorem levies and special assessments by any municipal corporation in which located, provided the governing board thereof shall so agree in writing. And for the county property tax, it would be this governing board, and therefore we were approached in this case by the Village of Larchmont as well as the town of Mount and the Village of Mount Kisco to at least provide them with the tax exemption from the county property tax. For the Mount Kisco exemption, which is the one that we would now be voting on, they have no assignment of a refuse tax, so that doesn't come into it, and they would be exempt from the county property tax in the amount of, no, it's not written here. Yes, it is. $27,670 of county taxes that would be then spread out across other parcels on an annual basis. What I think is very important about this also is that it provides an incentive to municipalities to move on their own with regards to stormwater retention, flood mitigation, certain public benefits that they might not want to go into for fear of having to pay greater property taxes and not being able to have exemptions. So this opens the door for these, and there are just a few municipalities that have this, but it does open the door for them to seek some tax relief. And the county is setting the stage for this. So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Members on this item, Mr. Harkam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Ms. Myers for great explanation. We speak in this chamber often about tax cuts, tax reduction, but we also speak about tax fairness. And here's an issue where a municipality owns public property in another municipality for a public good. And state tax law says clearly these parcels are exempt, should be exempt, can be exempt. And as the Chair of Budget and Appropriations has just mentioned, there are just a very few small number of these in the county of Westchester that have been researched and determined. And this does not, by exempting them from county tax, this is just exempting them from the county portion of property tax. It puts no undue financial burden on the municipality in which it sits. So by us exempting this Mount Kisco parcel that's in Bedford, we're not putting any undue financial strain on the town of Bedford. This is spread, this $20-some-odd thousand, as Ms. Myers mentioned, is spread out among the million people of Westchester. So it's fairness for the small villages. It's codified in law for a reason, because this clearly provides a public benefit, whether it's water or flood control. So these are good things, and I urge all good colleagues to support them as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harkam. Members on this item. Ms. Shimsky, sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We need more and better stormwater management projects in this county, and at the very least, we can aid those municipalities which have taken some of the burden off of us to make sure that there are flood control projects. And certainly the $20-some thousand is not a lot of money for the county in return for what we get in terms of stormwater management, but on the other hand, for a small village dealing with the 2% tax cap, that money could go a long way in either keeping the property well maintained so it functions properly, or letting it silt up and go fallow. So this really is a wise move from a public policy perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shimsky. Other members? Madam Clerk, Unless there's objections, we'll take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item.
I'd like to see a long vote, please.
Madam Clerk, a long roll call vote.
Really long.
Mr. Harkam.
Yes.
Mr. Maizano. Ms. Borgia.
Yes.
Mr. Burrows. Mr. Gelfarb. Mr. Kaplowitz. Ms. Marcotte. Ms. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Perez.
Yes.
Ms. Shimsky.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Spreckman. Mr. Testa. Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Approved 15-0. Item 6272 from the Committee on Budget and Appropriations, an act to exempt certain real property owned by the Village of Larchmont and located within the town of Mamaroneck from the real property taxes imposed by the County of Westchester for county and county district purposes other than sewer district purposes.
Ms. Myers. Ms. Myers.
Great. Okay. Not overed. This is the third request by the second request by the Village of Larchmont, the third request that was discussed today in Budget and Appropriations for an exemption. This particular piece of property houses a water supply tank, and currently the Village of Larchmont pays $4,247 in county taxes that it would be exempt from. They will continue to pay their sewer district taxes. However, they are not exempt from that. And unlike the other piece of property that seeks its exemption, this one holds extra water for the Village of Larchmont. The other body of water, which is the reservoir, actually gets drained out before a major storm so that water doesn't flood the northern end of New Rochelle, as well as the entire village of Mamaroneck, because this runs into the whole Sheldrake watershed that has to make its way to the Long Island Sound. And by shoring up the dam that is located in the Larchmont Reservoir, which resides in the city of New Rochelle, as well as the town of Mamaroneck, they can empty the water out, then close the dam, and let the reservoir serve a terrific purpose of basically being a bathtub to be filled up with stormwater, so that New Rochelle, the northern end of New Rochelle, doesn't flood, and so that the village of Mamaroneck doesn't flood. So unfortunately, we won't be able to vote on the flood controls, but I am so pleased that we can vote today on the water supply tower and $4,000 in savings. Thank you so much.
Members on this item. Unless there's an objection, we'll take the prior long roll call vote for approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 15-0. Item 6275 from the Committee on Budget and Appropriations is an act amending the 2013 County Capital Budget appropriations for capital project B0018 Bronx River Parkway at Crane Road over Bronx River and Railroad, Greenberg, and Scarsdale.
Ms. Myers.
Yes, this is a capital budget amendment that actually was proposed to be brought through the Board of A and C, but it was realized that it actually really did need Board of Legislative approval. So it came before Budget and Appropriations this morning. This actually increases the non-county share of the Crane Road, Bronx River Parkway at Crane Road, over the Bronx River and Railroad, Greenberg, and Scarsdale bridge structure, which is actually the largest project that's ever been undertaken on the Bronx River. This provides more funding, a non-county funding of the over $500,000 to provide for more staffing, and this is being done through a consultant, so this will be more consultant staffing. And due to the size and complexity of this project, the federal government has determined that we should have more oversight on this, and they are willing to pay. So this is a request of Budget and Appropriations and of the Board of Legislators to approve the acceptance of $534,967,000.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. members on this particular item? Okay. Thank you, members. Just, I was just getting clarification from our fiscal director, Olivia Rose, and the outstanding budget staff that we have between Olivia Rose, Ann Reesner, and David Kabibo, to make sure that we were asking the question. I wanted to understand, just to ask when we asked this specific question. This particular resolution was presented to the Board of Acquisition and Contract last week on July 11th. The previous week, members should know that this fiscal staff and I go through every resolution to understand the impact. This particular item is an amendment in front of us now that required a capital budget amendment as identified by our fiscal staff, because the amount of money that we are receiving from the federal government would exceed the amount that we authorized from the Board of Legislators. That was really what the bottom line issue was, by $534,000, which Ms. Myers just mentioned. So in the Board of Acquisition and Contract meeting, we not only overed this particular item, we also, and I did that on behalf of the board, in addition to that, we asked the administration to expedite getting us the capital budget amendment that was required for this, and that is why it went directly into committee for our consideration tonight. There is a time frame on this particular item, which happens far too much, but we have a time frame to do this particular item in order to not lose this $560,000, which is why it went directly into committee instead of following the process of coming in as a communication. But we are, I want to report to all of you and thank Mr. Plunkett and the Deputy County Executive for making sure that we received that information and the modification between Thursday and Friday, which we did approximately 5 o'clock on Friday, and putting it on the committee agenda this morning. So again, Ms. Myers, thank you for the consideration in your committee today to make sure this gets done. And certainly we want to recognize in the administration's understanding for getting it to us so that we would not lose this money. Unless there's objections, members, we'll take the prior long roll call vote for the approval of the item. So ordered.
Approved 15-0. Motions, resolutions, call of the districts.
Members, motions, resolutions, and call of the districts. Mr. Kaplowitz.
Yes, I'd like to add two individuals. One is Mr. Corwin. It's Garrison R. Gary Corwin Jr. and Esperanza Wood, and I'll give you the information on that. And I'm sure others will as well, but I just would be remiss not to note the passing of Bob Boland, and certainly condolences to his family. Bob is someone who, except for those of us in the room and those who personally knew Bob, you didn't get to know Bob, yet you really should have, because he was a very wonderful person. You should have, because Bob had a lot to teach, and he did it in that very quiet way. Bob walked around with a pencil, with an eraser at the end of it, and that was kind of Bob's life. He didn't really feel like he needed much more. He was a very, very simple man. It always went in his top pocket here. On a personal basis, I learned quite a bit when I was a young lad joining the Budget Appropriations Committee, and he never corrected you in meeting, but always would come up to you afterwards and comment, and that's how I and so many of us learned. And he had that wonderful smile and that great wit, and really that handle on numbers that no one else has had. And there are a lot of good people we've had, but Bob just had a way of doing it. So I think he beat the computers. I think he beat the slide rule. Couldn't beat the actuarial table, but for those of us that got to know Bob and work with Bob, we'll always remember Bob. And he, for the betterment of the people of Westchester County, really did a nice job of looking at the numbers. He was really the checks and balances for the Board of Legislators in a world where I think he was it, and yet he looked at the budget each and every year, inside and out. And institutionally, we're going to miss him. And personally going to miss him as well. So God bless Bob Boland.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplowitz. Other members? Ms. Spreckman and Mr. Burrows, I certainly will join you on Frank Adamo Jr. It says, okay. Frank Adamo as well. I mean, I saw the junior as, that was, that's right, I'm right. Mr. Burrows, just say that again, because you're not, your mic's not on, Mr., so we couldn't hear you, so just say the name again. Thank you.
If you would please add me on with Bernice for Barbara Mallon.
Absolutely. Ms. Shimsky.
I'd like to be added to Honorable A. Williams's resolution for Bernice Skipwith.
Other members? Members, and Mr. Kaplowitz, we want to give absolutely a few minutes and moments for people to have some reflections with Bob Boland. You know, Bob, as you said, was not only an institution here for the Board of Legislators. And one of the things that always struck me that for Bob Boland, and for those of you that knew him really well, and that's most of us here, before he retired in 2010 and became the consultant to us. But if you had an opportunity to sit with Bob, there was just the institutional knowledge, and that's why he was our representative on the medical center. Mr. Harker made sure that he appointed him as our non-voting member for the medical center board because of his great institutional knowledge of just the medical center, but all of the county functions. And he hearkens to that day because clearly he was in the administration of this Board of Legislators, as many of our central staff members have been, whether it's been Democrats or Republicans, that he was the person that gave us a foundation. And certainly I know that our current fiscal director, Ms. Rhodes, and certainly Ann Reesner and David as well, David Cabibo, felt great loss, and all of us here felt great loss with losing not only just an institutional knowledge, but as a friend. You know, Bob Boland had cancer, and at the end of his life was very difficult. But you know, his family members, in speaking with the clerk of the board, and certainly with Olivia and Ann, throughout his time, Bob would check in on various things just to see that we were doing well, and folks would check on him as well. But he hearkens to that day where I'm not sure what happened along the way, that people were afraid to come down to the Board of Legislators for the Budget and Appropriations Committee meetings, because they knew that they would be grilled, not just only by the legislators around the table, but they also knew that Bob Boland was sitting in the background and sitting at the desk with his books out and ready to go to the files, to use a different person's term, and pull out the information and be able to show it to you and show you why things worked a certain way. And it was not a question on what side of the aisle that you were on as a legislator. That respect was given to whoever that was, and that was a testament to Bob, and certainly a testament to how people operated with the Board of Legislators, and certainly being able to call a department and ask for information and get that information without having to have a subpoena or anything like that to get that stuff that we need in the oversight role. So Bob was a tremendous person, not just from an institution perspective, but as a human being. My only personal reflection that I want to make for Bob is that I'm really sorry he didn't have a good chance to enjoy retirement the way that we would hope all of us when we achieve that level because of the passing of his wife. His wife had cancer as well. So, he's there together with his wife, Ellie, and certainly that's a benefit for Bob, but didn't get a really good chance to enjoy his time as a retired person, having served so many years in the fiscal area here at the board, but outside in the finance world. And with that pencil that Mr. Kaplowitz reported to, not afraid to take it out and use it, as far as erasing a number and saying this is the case, but understanding each and every place and being able to show you how a dollar amount today, where it was going to end up and how it was going to impact, not tomorrow, not next month, not next year, but 2 years down the road. So we're going to miss that part, but certainly, you know, we have our erstwhile staff that has their experience as well in the county government and finding little things out, and Bob, as they would tell us, trained them well, right? So we appreciate all the things that Bob did for us. Mr. Mazzano.
I would just like to add about Bob Boland. I think it's fair to say he was a tremendous public servant. Bob probably knew the budget as well as anybody in this county over the last 100 years. And I remember after I got elected, like all new legislators, I attended the budget meetings. And the first one I ever attended as a new legislator, I was, I guess, legislator-elect. I can't remember who it was somebody in the O'Rourke administration. And Bob Boland was like a cross-examination, like you described, Ken. He was asking really tough questions, and he wouldn't let him off the hook. And the commissioner was trying to wiggle out of it. And Bob Boland was like an attorney, asking really tough questions. And he was doing that to protect the taxpayers of Westchester. And I think that's why he was a tremendous public servant. The other thing I would point out about Bob was he really cared about the legislators. And he really cared about helping us represent our districts. I can't tell you how many times Bob stopped me in the hallway over the last 16 years and said, "Did you know this was going on? This is something to keep an eye out." You'd come in and to be in your box a little note from Bob with some backup about something going on in your district. He was that kind of public servant. He was bipartisan. He cared. He took his job very seriously, but he really cared about all of us. And he really wanted us to represent our districts well. And that's what I'll always remember about Bob Boland. He really was somebody that took his job seriously. He was a tremendous public service, and he really cared about all of us, regardless who sat in these chairs. He was a friend to all the legislators. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mazzano. Mr. Harcum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's not a lot to be said about Bob that has not been said by you and Mr. Kaplowitz, Mr. Mazzano. I had the privilege, as many of you, as serving as a legislator under Bob's tutelage, but I also had the pleasure of being an office mate with Bob for Bob's last 2 years. And I was able to see much more of that sense of humor and the smile. When we were in the Committee on Budget and Appropriations, it was all business for Bob. Bob loved to laugh, had a great smile, and loved his jelly beans. And could get a little grumpy when people were stealing his jelly beans, but he loved that it gave pleasure. And he really cared about the medical center. He taught me quite a bit about the medical center, and he cared about it because he knew it cared for Westchester's neediest. And he knew that there were people working there who were impacted by the decisions that were made that was going there. So even as Bob started stepping back from the day-to-day operations of the board, his moral compass kept him focused, kept me engaged, and I'm just going to miss walking in the morning and seeing that smile light up as I walked in the door. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harcum. The last thing I want to say is that the family members, specifically Donna, were very clear. Donna, Bob, Geraldine, Martin, and Neil, thank you, all wanted to express to all the legislators, and they wanted, when I spoke to them a couple of times, they wanted to express to all of us, to our clerk, to Olivia and Ann, to everyone that's involved in the Board of Legislators, how much they appreciate the support all of us gave to them, whatever ways it was, whether it was a phone call or whether it was just checking in with them. So again, I wanted to thank all of you for the kind words that you said tonight. But again, we'll miss Bob. We'll figure out something. We're going to get like a box and pencils in the boardroom and figure out a way that, as a desk or something, that we can make sure to recognize, Bob and the things that Bob has done as far as trying to recognize us as the legislature and respecting legislators, all of us, again, no matter what side of the aisle, that when there was a question asked, as Mr. Mazzano said, you did not get off the hook. You didn't say, go talk to somebody else. You didn't need permission. Bob made sure to find out for the legislature, and we need to figure out how to get some of that back. So if we could all please rise and have a moment of silence for all of the people mentioned in the memorial resolutions, but specifically for a Board of Legislators institution and Bob Bowling. Mr. Harker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, I would move that we adjourn and reconvene on August 12th at 10 a.m.
Mr. Mazzano, your second. Madam Clerk, a short roll call.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzano? Yes. Mr. Chairman?
Yes. On the motion of Mr. Harkin, the board stands adjourned.